Hey, what's up my tribe? I hope you had a happy holiday and thank you for clicking on the video. To this date, in Elden Ring patch 1.10, honestly, this has to be one of the most ridiculous and stupid OP build using one of the best weapons in the game since launch.
To this day!
I'm talking about a Faith build that puts out insane damage and makes boss fights trivial. It's the complete GOAT with a great reach, awesome damage, knocks back enemies, and it heals you in the process. It can't get more OP than this. If you guess the weapon, please comment down below if you love it or you hate it. Stick around to watch how to use it and how to set up this build to dominate your next NG Plus playthrough in Elden Ring. Gear up and game on! The weapon that I'm talking about is the powerful Blasphemous blade, and what makes it still OP to this date is the skill called Taker's Flame that creates a forward flame blast with ridiculous reach, doing fire and stance damage to the point of knocking down enemies, and also healing you when you get a hit with the skill, and also if you get a kill with the weapon in hand. It's crazy. On a max level Blasphemous blade, it scales best with Faith with a B and C with Strength and Dexterity. It has medium requirements, so when you get it, you probably already met them. Taker's Flame deals pure fire damage and scales only with Faith. You can get it as a reward when you defeat Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, located in Volcano Matter in Malgelmir, and trade in the Remembrance in Roundtable Hold for the sword. With this Faith build, I'm going to abuse the skill Taker's Flame with a few supporting incantations that will take it to another level. Against normal enemies, you can round them up in a straight line to be more effective and kill them all in a single cast. Take advantage of the massive reach to avoid getting close to the enemy. Sometimes you can finish an enemy off quicker with your sword instead of doing a new cast of Taker's Flame. As an opener for bosses, I used a Blade of Death skill from the Black Knife to reduce the HP from enemies throughout the fight while I used Taker's Flame. If you want to make the boss fights even easier, it's crazy, you can use the Mimic tier and it will completely destroy them with two Blasphemous blades in action. In my NG Plus runs, I avoid the Mimic tier because the weapon it's already OP, so have a heart for the bosses, please, come on. The only downsides of the build and the weapon in my NG Plus playthrough was the fire resistant enemies. That can still be dealt with, of course, but won't be that fast as using Taker's Flame. The Black Knife skill can help a lot with that, and that's why I have it as a secondary weapon, and I will mention that in just a bit. But first things first, let's start with the class you need. I recommend using a Confessor because it's the class with the most points in Faith, and the second best could be a Wretch or a Vagabond. In this showcase video, I'm using a level 200 Vagabond, so some points might differ from yours. The main attribute is going to be, yeah, you guessed it, Faith, of course, and you want to level up as well your Vigor, a little bit on Mind, and Endurance to be able to abuse Taker's Flame skill, and also Strength, if you plan on doing the occasional damage with the sword that I actually use sometimes to finish enemies, instead of waiting for the Taker's Flame animation. So in my character, I got Vigor at 65, Mind at 30, Endurance at 30, Strength at 38, Dexterity at 20, Intelligence at 9, Faith at 80, and Arcane at 7. So like I mentioned before, I have a secondary weapon that I'm using on this build, and it's the Black Knife, with the purpose of using the Blade of Death skill at the beginning of a boss fight to reduce their HP over time. I find it very helpful for bosses that have a lot of airtime, or even flying enemies that Taker's Flame can't hit them, or enemies that have fire resistance that using Taker's Flame will take more time than usual. And as for the seal, I'm using the Earth Tree seal. It's one of the best Faith seals in the game that scales S with Faith, and at max level has a high level of incantation scaling. If you want to use some incantation at big bosses, that will mention in just a few. If you like the build so far, please hit the like button to make YouTube share this video with more people, and it will help the channel a lot. So thank you guys. So if you're a fan of the channel, you know I always go for fashion souls. It takes precedence. I have to look good before creating the actual build. So if you're like me, please comment down below what is your go-to fashion armor in Elden Ring. The one I used this time for the Blasphemous Blade Faith build was the Drake Knight set. That I was saving it for a dragon build, but what the heck, I'm using it right now. So I'm using the helm, the armor, the gauntlets, and the greaves. So now let's talk about the talisman that I'm using on this build. The first one is the Shard of Alexander that will increase the attack power of skills by 15%, in particular the Taker's Flame and the Blade of Death. Next is the Fire Scorpion Charm that will increase the fire damage by 12%, specifically Taker's Flame skill fire damage. Next is the Carrion Filigree Crest that will lower the FP cost of skills by 25%, so you can abuse Taker's Flame skill and use less focus points. The last talisman is really interchangeable. By default, I'm using the Ritual Sword Talisman to raise attack power by 10% when my HP is at max, to make this an offensive build. Since the Blasphemous Blade will heal me when killing an enemy or hitting them with the Taker's Flame skill, it's easy to have the HP at max. There are some other options to use if you don't like the talisman or you don't have your HP at max at all times. You can use the Flock's Canvas Talisman if you want to use more incantations and increase their power, or the Lightning Scorpion Charm if you want to have more power to the lightning attack incantation that I'm using on this build for big bosses. Or if you're looking to have more defense, the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. It's a great talisman to boost your physical damage negation. For the Physick Flask, I'm using the Flame Shrouding Crack tier that will increase fire attacks. And the second tier is the Faith Knot Crystal tier that will temporarily boost Faith. For this build, I run with a small set of buff and incantation, mainly for boss fights. The first spell is Golden Vow that will increase damage done by 15% and damage negation on the last 80 seconds. Next is Flame Grant Me Strength that will increase physical and fire damage by 20%. And the last spell is Flame Cleanse Me. I always run with this, that will remove any buildup and cure poison and scarlet rot. For the incantations, I use Lightning Spear to have a sniping spell other than the Blade of Death skill from the Black Knife to take out those enemies far away or those enemies that might be flying. And last one is the Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, one of the best or the best incantation to use on large enemies or bosses. It makes a ton of damage in a big radius, so I use it on dragons mostly. And it's because this incantation that I'm using lightning instead of, fire, but you're more welcome to use the fire incantation if you wanna, go with the fire theme. So before fighting bosses, my buff sequence is Physick Flask first, then Golden Vow, then Flame Grant Me Strength, and lastly an FP Flask, so you are full when you start engaging the boss. This build was made specifically for the Blasphemous Blade, with the possibility of using a different kind of incantation like fire, if you please. The only con this weapon has in the build, it's against fire resistant enemies. That's why you can use the Black Blade instead, or just take your time with that boss or enemies, knowing you won't defeat it that quickly with the Taker's Flame. But other than that, this weapon can take on anything in the game and makes it really easy when fighting all kinds of enemies and bosses. Just spamming one skill can sometimes take the fun out of the game, but it's still so damn powerful to this day that you have to use it. I remember when the game was launched and this weapon was ridiculous, and it still is. So guys, hope you enjoyed this video like I did making it. And if you run a similar build with the Blasphemous Blade or different items, please post it down below. I'm very interested to read your comments. If you want to help the channel, hit that like button so this video can get to more people. And if you don't want to miss future videos, just subscribe to the channel and be part of the tribe. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every one of you. Have a great 2024. And as always, be safe and see you on the next one. Ciao.